life and life skills. So it's one of these self-help manuals, right? And it talks about how to have relationships and what skills women need to have. And one of the skills for women is the skill of secret writing, meaning passing private messages, maybe to their partners, or if they're having interesting relationships, and whatever. So that is actually included in this book, a description of how to hide communication, encryption, in fact. And it's a pretty simple encryption process that's described in the book. It's called substitution. And you've probably all seen this. Take your message and then replace each letter by a different letter in some prescribed way that only the other person knows how to replace it back. So this is a substitution cipher. And so I thought I'd just use that for the title. So anybody guess what the book is? You've all heard of it, I promise you. Ancient Indian text about relationships. The Kama Sutra. Right. So, it's famous for all the wrong reasons, right? So, this was encryption back, of more than, actually it's older than 1,500 years because it's based on stuff from over 2,000 years ago. But by about the 8th or 9th century, Arab mathematicians had figured out that these kinds of ciphers are fairly easy to crack if you start analyzing the frequency of the letters and things like this. So it's not a very safe system. It's not used anymore. So now fast forward, 1,500 years back to the beginning of the 20th century, and we have quantum physics. And for the first time, we now have protocols that are not based on fancy mathematics. The big difference is now the protocols are based on the laws of physics. So if you want to crack our encryption codes today that are based on quantum theory, you have to violate the laws of physics. So that's way more secure, right? And what's the particular law here we're talking about? It's quantum uncertainty. You've all heard of this, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. I like this beautiful, visual of it that was actually designed by a philosophy professor at the University of Pittsburgh. But it really captures the idea that you can't know everything precisely about a quantum object. So the standard example is more precisely, the position of a particle, the less precisely, the momentum, and vice versa. So this, of course, was known from the 1920s. Historically speaking, Heisenberg had developed this theory, but it was kind of largely avoided in the sense that, you could solve Schrodinger's equation, you could figure out all of the electronic structure of all the elements, build our circuits, semiconductor industry happened, the laser industry happened. None of them put uncertainty front and center. They found ways around it, right? Until the 80s when, in fact, people in Canada also played a big role in realizing why avoid it. This is actually not a bug, it's a feature, right? That's what they now describe it as. Part of that is to get funding, but it's actually true. And the big application turned out to be encryption, and you may have heard of this encryption process called quantum key distribution, where this is entirely based on the idea that you can't know, for example, a photon's polarization in every direction precisely. So if you encode your message in, let's say, horizontal and vertical polarization directions, and Eve, the eavesdropper up here, tries to measure in a different direction, let's say 45 degrees, then because of uncertainty, she cannot precisely know what was the bit that you were trying to send. So